This is Sam Christopher, writer of episode 618, The Brockton College Killer.
This is Sean Hennon, writer of episode 619, Rassvet.
You're listening to the Blacklist Exposed
on Golden Spiral Media.
Two hours of information overload. Welcome to the award-winning The Blacklist Exposed podcast. I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. And, what did I want to say? It's a man, baby! Yeah! Thanks for joining us once again as we discuss number 92 on The Blacklist, The Brockton College Killer, written by Sam Christopher and directed by Sadeh Mustafa. We will also discuss Rassvet, the second hour of this 2-hour opus, written by Sean Hennon and directed by Michael Caracciolo. Show notes and other intel for this episode of The Blacklist Exposed can be found at theblacklistexposed.com. Before we move on, I just got to ask you, Troy, we'll get into it, but this show just aired, right? An episode just aired. We're fresh off it, right?
Fresh.
I'm already sick of talking about it. How about you?
Oh my gosh, that was a very long evening. I think,
yes.
Did you even go to bed yet?
No. I mean, no. And before we get into all this, because there's a lot to unpack and all that jive, I just want to say, no matter what people's theories are, whether they're stuck on them, whether I agree, many people are stuck on whatever theory they're on, and they won't leave that area, despite when they see evidence and stuff. Whatever your theory is, it's okay for them to have it. It's their life. They're not affecting you. So if you want to debate with them, debate with them. I think that's the best part, being passionate. But don't be mean. I've seen mean people like coming at people and talking down to people because of whatever they believe. And we're not those kinds of fans. Let's not be those kinds of fans. So, and even though I enjoy rubbing Troy's nose in a couple things here, that's more in playful banter. So if you're doing things in playful banter with someone, you guys know you. But if you're just on the internet, come on, let's be the good fans. That's all I wanted to say.
And I think it's interesting because having stayed up quite a bit last night trying to, kill spoiler posts in the Facebook group and just kind of monitor things and see how things were going on the West Coast, I think there's a very clear indication that not a lot of people watch this live, because I thought I was going to run into a truck backing up and dumping out a whole bunch of suck it, Red Arena, on the vileness that is Twitter. I'm surprised to say that it isn't that awful yet this morning.
I saw it this morning. I didn't see it last night, but I really feel because of its move to Friday night, and especially they moved it up an hour.
Right.
I thought it was going to be, personally, I even thought it was going to be on at 8 o'clock until a friend in the group told us. And then the Facebook group, The Blacklist Exposed. There's your plug, Troy. They told us and they bumped up, and I tuned in an hour early. So a lot of people, I think, might have missed the first hour, which honestly, you probably didn't need to watch. There's a little bit of information, but really the bulk of the mythologies in this, I'm not saying you shouldn't have watched it. I'm just saying in terms of the mythology, that was packed in the second hour mostly.
I was going to say, you better take back your crap because those Dembe loyals are going to come after you.
Yeah, no, I 100% didn't mean that. I was just speaking in reference to the Red Arena
mythology.
Thing that you mentioned.
Yes, the bigness of it all. Absolutely.
I love Dembe. Hisham Tawfiq is great. Go see his movie Jinn, because I love that movie. There you go. Hope we're good now, Hisham. Let's get into this.
Interesting morning, that's for sure. We'll cover off on everything, including the awesome love podcasting got in this episode. Hello. And
wait. I don't know if I'd call that awesome. I'm not 100% sure. I'm willing to take a few people out if it means more listeners, though. I mean, if that's what we got to do.
Look, I'm the one that's should be taking people out because they're making fun of my theory, right? But you're the one that think that's a little more creepy. You're rubbing my nose and stuff, coming over when I'm sleeping, watching episodes of Blacklist at night. I don't even know who you are anymore.
Yeah, it was really a bummer because Avengers is out, and I'm sitting here going, I gotta go watch this other episode. I had to rewatch Cape May,
Ilya Surkov,
and I'm like, that's not even the same name. What the hell? What are you doing, Aaron? Go to bed. We'll definitely cover off on THAW, the Frozen podcast. I would listen to it. I love true crime, so this is totally something I would listen to too.
The Brockton College Killer. Yes, we'll get into the case profile there just a little bit. We'll get into Rassvet, because Aaron still doesn't know how to speak Russian even after all these years.
Let's just call it Dawn. That's what it means. Let's just call it Dawn. How about
exactly. There we go. We'll also cover off on all of your special agent intel from the episode, and we'll have some words of wisdom from Red's Rhetoric as well. Remember, if you're enjoying the show, fill the fedora. Yes, $5 a month. It would be great if we got that from 400 of you, because then we can do a watch party in New York over at Patreon. That's Patreon, patreon.com/the Blacklist GSM. It really does help us and support the show, and we can do all kinds of crazy things like stay up till 2 a.m. watching old Blacklist episodes.
Yeah. With that, let's see how you all answered last week's profiling question,
which kind of sucked, by the way. Let me just tell you.
Oh man, I laughed out loud.
like how come, I swear it's like the promo department, because we were picking on the promo department. I swear they're trolling us now. Like, hey, what's their question? Maybe we can release a teaser that tells you the answer.
The question last week was, from whom will Red find out who turned him in? Turns out NBC wanted to make sure that we knew it was Liz, because that was actually part of their clip right off the bat, which, hey, I'm glad that they answered it in the episode, like right immediately. But the clip? Could we wait until the show airs before we drop that bomb that Liz is... Yeah, well, I guess they're tantalizing the audience. They got to do what they got to do, right?
Got to do what they got to do, I suppose. Yep, so the majority of everybody said Liz, because obviously everybody saw the clip, so yeah. I guess we just move on, because we have a lot of other stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. So next week's profiling question: what happened to Katarina after Reddington? Now, I'm not saying anything about who became what, not yet. But I am saying, what happened to Katarina after the Reddington moment? If you, listener, believe that Ilya I say his
You're
name.
like my wife, Ilya Koslov. It's not that difficult.
Ilya Koslov. It is when it's this early. We're super early. This is the earliest I think we've ever recorded a podcast, so please forgive me. I'm not there yet. If you believe that that's him, what happened after that moment? Because we need to know from that perspective what happened to Katarina. We know there's a Hobson's choice at some point, a man or a child or a woman, and he chose the child. So what happened to Katarina?
All right.
Interesting.
Well, thanks for all that answer this week. Now, before we freeze to death, let's get to this week's case profile.
The Brockton College Killer. Now I feel bad for THAW, because right now we're going to jolt right past this bad boy and be as fast as we can, because we got the cool stuff to get to. But it actually, I feel really bad for this story, man, because I thought it was a fun episode. I do, but nobody's talking about this part of it.
And not just because we're podcasters either.
No, I really dug the episode, except my wife called it 5 minutes in. I did not call it. My wife called it. I had an idea. I really thought she killed this recent person. I didn't think she killed the 3 original people.
And I said she killed all of the people as soon as she was behind the microphone for the first time. I was like, oh, snap.
My wife called it as soon as she heard it's a podcast. It's like she doesn't trust podcasters. That's what I gathered out of that, because she's like, oh, the podcaster killed all of them. Like, what? How do you get that? Where did you get that? Oh, all right. I guess it's in the show. Anyway, serial killer has been stalking coeds, and a man, Tobias Carlyle, is on trial for his life, accused of the murders. Podcast, THAW, has been advocating for him on his behalf since he was arrested. Kimberly Owens is the host, and when another girl goes missing, Tobias is less likely of a suspect, and they are able to use that a little bit. A professor becomes a major suspect who was having a little fling with one of his college students. Shame, shame. Why don't professors learn? You can't do that. You lose your... Is it really worth losing your teaching abilities, man?
Yeah, at least it was monogamous with the one student instead of sleeping with many. That usually is how it normally goes.
You still can't. I mean, it's a rule.
Love finds a way.
Yeah, that's what that is. Okay. Not, hey, she's 30 years younger and she's interested. Yay, me. I'm so old. The professor isn't really the person who did it, though, because we learn after Tobias is exonerated and Kimberly and Tobias bump uglies that she has loved him the whole time. She's been knocking off basically competition. It was Kimberly
Stalker.
The whole time.
Yeah, she's a little creepy.
Yeah, so that is the crux of that Blacklister. And why do we jet through that one is because we want to get to Dembe and the other parts of the mythology, because that's really what we're going to talk about for most of the podcast.
And none of that in the story really actually adds anything to the Blacklist itself, right? From a mythology read, there was no connection to it. It was just a cool story.
Well, I mean, they saved Tobias Carlyle.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Tobias Carlyle's like nobody to Red. It was just cool.
No.
I think the only connection was that Red loves analog.
I'm trying to figure out, as people that make and consume podcasts, does he record them on cassettes and then listens to them? Because that doesn't make any sense to me.
A true story. So Liz obviously was like, most people live digitally now. And yes, CD technology is digital, but yet it's still analog in a sense that he's not connected to the internet to be found and all that fun stuff like you are with a normal podcast consumption. But I actually do know somebody who will take podcasts and download them and burn them onto CD for their wife. So Red is one of two in the entire world.
Why?
Because she's got like an old flip phone. She doesn't have like a modern smartphone. She doesn't believe in it.
She doesn't believe in it. She doesn't want the man finding out where she is at all times.
No. She does not. So
I actually know a guy that's the same way. He actually doesn't own a phone. He uses his wife's cell phone. Like if he goes somewhere, he borrows her phone. But it's also a flip phone. He won't buy a smartphone because the man is coming to get him. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. I did love the old like Walkman. It's fun. Put on little
I'll
headphones.
tell you, what I found out? This kind of creeped me out. I should have known. I should have assumed. But this past week, I was running through the park. I'm a runner, and came across there was a fire in the park. It was starting to catch. So I called 911 and just wanted to let them know, hey, there's a fire in the park. Here's where it is. And I start giving them locations, and they tell me, we've already triangulated your position. I was on the phone for 30 seconds. They knew exactly where it was. So that whole, we got to keep them on the phone for 2 minutes, bull bleepity. They knew exactly where it was. They had it down to like coordinates. So yeah, keep that in mind, people. The man's always watching.
Man is always watching. The man's also listening on his headphones to not only podcasts, but some killer music in this episode. Jenny is about to become a popsicle thanks to a killer podcast and some tunes from Ethan Burns with his song King of Secrets. Later in hour one, as our jealous girl gets carted away by the cops, we hear Love Doesn't Last Too Long from the Weepies. All right. Hour two, when we get into Rassvet, we actually get some classic NXS with the smash hit Never Tear Us Apart. But I have a question, though.
Don't ask me.
Is this anthem... Is this an anthem for Katarina and Koslov? Or is this an anthem for Katarina and Masha? Curious. All right, then we close up the episode with Red questioning Dom to Catastrophe Anthem by Clark. As always, you can find these great songs on the playlists, both at Spotify and at Apple Music. You can get links to both of those on our website over at theblacklistexposed.com.
My favorite part of the entire 2 episodes is hearing NXS, because that is one of my favorite bands of all time. Top 5. That's a top 5 band for me. And saw them. That's my first concert ever, was NXS. Little fun fact.
It's a great band.
Fantastic band. It's a sad story, but it's a fantastic band.
I'm actually listening. I made a whole NXS playlist for today when I'm cleaning the house later.
Let's move on to characters, but thanks for playing it, because seriously, NXS I get to listen to all day, every day. I just love Michael Hutchins. Had a beautiful voice.
I'd love to know how much it took to get that song cleared and how much it cost.
I'm sure it's $3, right? The most popular songs out there, always cheap. So Cooper and Aram, they do very little this week. Aram does a little bit more. We learned that he's great at Pac-Man and he's great at tracking down leads. But in terms of adding to the mythology or anything like that this week, not so much. Nothing really happened. The Pac-Man thing was pretty fun because it seemed like Rustler was willing to take him up on it. I like that moment.
They should put a tabletop pack. They should get the one from Red's secret 1980s place that he had and bring it over to the post office for when Red stops by. Possibly. But we've got so much mythology. We're just going to skim right through there. Wrestler, he confesses he's been pursuing Red's identity. So we have that out there, and that conversation went a lot smoother than I thought it would go. Agreed? Well, if technically you've been Liz following in Red's footsteps for 6 years now, you would say that she's picked up a few things, and I'm sure that even Red knew that Liz had turned him in. He just didn't want to believe it. So I'm sure she also was like, I knew Wrestler was going to keep going. So right. I'm not really that mad about it.
But this leads to Dom. And we'll get to Dom. That's coming up. But we also find out that Russia is still looking for Dom because he ran as Prince. So now it puts Dom back on the radar. Now that's an interesting development because, one, who are the Russians? We assume it's KGB or something along those lines. Maybe Cabal. We don't know. But they are still looking for Dom. And the second that he put him in there, it pinged it. So the other thing is, does this put Dom in danger now? Those two questions. What did you gather?
Well, the guy said, "Why are you looking into Katarina Rostova?" Didn't say they were looking for Dom. Dom is
Katarina Rostova's father, because you. Oh, well, yeah, and then you said you ran as Prince.
Yeah. So I think at this point you have to assume two things. Knowing what happens the rest of the episode in Rassvet, you have to say either A, they're working for current day Red, just like Red's always had people watching, right? Like the Apple Man, etc.
I didn't get that. I mean, they said. They basically implied they're still looking for him because Russell said you're still looking for him.
Right. But he was questioning, like, why are you looking? He said, why? So that could be Red's people just tailing Wrestler because he does know that Wrestler knows something. So I would have put a tail on him too after that court trial. Or two, Katarina's still alive as a separate individual person. And these are her people trying to make sure that nobody finds her.
That's possible.
Or three, it's a KGB people looking for the whole thing because it's what did you call him? Velov's people never gave up. Because it's not Velov, because we met Velov in season 2. He's elderly in a house. He's not chasing him down anymore himself. He's not that spry anymore.
Yeah, do you want to recap people on Velov? That one you probably should mention.
Velov was a guy who always thought that Katarina was out there, a ghost in the wind. Liz actually went to go see him at one point and had a conversation, and that got her kind of on the bone of her mother may be alive, and that's kind of what led to Red's flat at some point back in season 2. So we know that Velov is still alive in the current aspect of the universe.
Right.
Or Velov, as they kept calling him in the episode.
Okay, now we move on to Dembe. We spent the entire episode worried for Dembe's safety, I would say. And we're not going to look at Red's side of it until we get to Red. We're going to just talk about Dembe's side of it here.
We probably worried about both of them. Like, we didn't know what he was going to do to Liz or Dembe initially at the start of the episode.
No, there's not an ounce of me that was worried about Liz. Not even. Was there an ounce of you?
No.
Okay, well, what... Come on.
But he's unpredictable. You never know what he's really good. I mean, the whole sequence was really like, I can't talk to you. I have to go.
They can't hurt Liz or it hurts the show. They're not going to do that. They got one more season to go. Now, maybe if it was the end of the series, then maybe you could, sure. And then, you suffer ramifications or something. But no, that's not going to happen.
He just died once before and come back.
But that's true. I don't think you could pull that same trick twice.
You cannot. You cannot.
I don't believe so. So when we get to the end, we find out I wasn't too worried about Dembe's safety, but then again, I remember Kaplan, and he did kill Kaplan. I mean, I'm hoping he learned a lesson, but I was kind of agitated with how he treated Dembe because I'm like, I got it 100% as soon as it happened. I wasn't offended. I mean, I get it, man. I mean, you've been loyal all this time and you're just protecting her because you don't want anything to happen to her. And because she asked you to, and you're trying to be respectful and all that jazz, but whatever. So, Red's off on his tangent.
Yeah, but you can say that in this moment of this reveal, there's a difference between Kaplan saying, I'm going to protect her with everything I have, including my life. Dembe isn't protecting Liz in this situation. He's protecting himself. He's protecting Liz, but it's not the same kind of protection level that Kaplan went through in order to get her away from Red, because Red was kind of a loose cannon towards that middle part of season 3 and into the end of season 3. So she was fearing that Red was making bad choices and was putting Liz in danger. Liz was never in danger from anybody other than Red. So Dembe should have come clean. And I think that's what hurts Red the most, is that there's the ultimate betrayal that he wouldn't trust Red with this information, even though he's trusted everything else. And he basically made this decision on his own, and Dembe's never made a decision on his own before. And that's what
guess what? Dembe's a grown-ass man. Forgive him.
True.
We'll move on. So, we get to the end of the episode, and we find out... What?
Feels. Coming back again.
Oh. We get to the end of the episode and we find out that Dembe cannot forgive Red. And that was a moment that I was not expecting, but I loved it. It was such a retaking the power moment, where he's sitting there and Red doesn't apologize. He doesn't really, say he's in the wrong for anything. Very rarely anyway. And here he is actually confessing true feelings and true emotions, and he's letting him know. I mean, it was a beautiful moment on Spader's part. Like, it was played beautifully. And then Hisham's over here. He's like, that's cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, I don't forgive you. And my heart actually sank. I'm like, oh, that did not just happen. What a beautiful thing to say. Now, I think we can debate why he said it. Was it because he doesn't forgive him for questioning his loyalty? Does he not forgive him for the things that he's done in pursuit of who set him up? Or is it he doesn't forgive him for listening? Whatever it is, I mean, I'm going with the loyalty thing. I think you question my loyalty, I'm done with you. I get that. For me, I get that.
That's exactly how I took it.
Yeah, me too.
You literally walked out on me this morning, dude. I've been here every single day, and now you're going to leave me at the last minute because I kept something from you for like all of a week or two?
Yeah. But to throw that back on him, I was not expecting it because for so long, Red is the guy in charge. Dembe is just a loyal follower and dutiful, what do you call it? Employee, I guess. And here that's flipped. I mean, he wasn't worried about dying. He was never worried about dying. He was going to leave no matter what because you question my loyalty. I'm not having that. Goodbye. That's the way I took it anyway. It was a beautiful moment. I really love how Hisham played that. I love how Spader played it. Like, both of them together in that scene, I thought worked perfect. And it was, even though it's not like a bombshell, it's going to change the foundation of mythology or anything like that. I mean, it's nothing that like what came in the second hour. But it was a hell of a turn character-wise because I never expected that moment.
It's a hell of a turn emotional-wise for the audience, too. I mean, you're sitting there and Red's like, I've realized... I do love you, Dembe. And I'm like, oh my God, he loves him. It's so great. It's like, but I can't forgive you. What? It was like, ripped my heart out of my chest at the same moment. I was like bawling my eyes out. It's like, come on. Like, that's great television right there. That scene.
Yeah, that was great.
That's a testament for the entire series.
And then he's like, bye, sucker. And then leaves. Probably wearing those sweet ass Jordans.
That's right. Oh my God.
Hisham has some sweet ass Jordans. So we get to Red. This is weird. We're kind of going to bounce around. We're going to do Red, and then we're going to do maybe Red, and then Red. We'll get there. But Red himself, these 2 episodes, he listens to podcasts. Yay. That's a great thing. Thanks for that. Maybe a shout out to Blacklist Exposed would have been cool. But how do you work that? How do you work that? That's some cheap self-serving right there, boy. How do you work that in? You know what I listen to? THAW and the Blacklist Exposed. It's weird. Probably a little too meta, huh?
Probably.
It's not too meta for you, Troy.
All they have to do is have the NBC promo guy at the end of the episode saying, "Want more Blacklist? Listen to the Blacklist Exposed." Now here's scenes for next week.
Nice. Here's where we tell you everything that happens next week. But we're going to have the voiceover lead you in completely different directions. How about that? Well, this one, I guess they didn't. They said we're going to get answers, and I think we did. It's more along the lines of our people are willing to accept them. Red has a moment of understanding after Liz confessed. That was a beautiful scene where he's coming to grips with her confession. Mm-hmm. Were you surprised with how Spader played that? I mean, we do find out. We've speculated all season. Did he know it was Liz or not? Well, now we know he did at one time, and then he talked himself out of it. So that was a fun little fact.
And I love that he's contemplating over the whole course of the years, this entire time of like Liz has duped me more than once. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of. It almost seems like he's kind of agitated about it a little bit. Like, why do I keep letting myself get burned by this person? And then especially now, if you assume that he's Elias Koslov, that like, yeah, why do I have to keep putting up with her? She's not my kid. She's a little brat. She keeps getting in the way and messing stuff up.
Yeah. And we find out that, you think you deserve to know the truth. You think you're entitled. It's an interesting question. And then he says, I'm not sure if I'll ever believe you again. Man, I am so not on board with that. I'm sorry. I'm totally in Liz's corner with that in that respect. her life has sucked because, and I'm sure it's a big secret and there's a reason why you can't tell her and everything else. I don't care. You walking into her life has made her life kind of hell. Maybe a little bit more understanding, Red, about that.
A little bit, yeah.
And fans are the same way. I mean, I know we love Red, and, every time anybody says anything to Red, we always get backlash for siding with the other person. But I'm totally siding with Liz on that one. I'm sorry. You don't get to say that to her. You don't. I'm taking backsies. I'm taking it back. You can't do it. Because I do think she deserves to know the truth. Whatever it is, she is entitled because you walked back into her life and made her life hell. So there you go. That's what I have to say about it.
And you put a guy in her life that made her life hell.
Really, everything bad that happens to her happens because of who she is and her association.
Correct.
Now, there is an interesting line that he says later on where he's basically saying you're trying to find answers about me instead of yourself, and that's really an interesting way to look at it, where he's saying, stop trying to find information about me, find out about yourself. Because I do believe there's more to the story than what we've seen so far, obviously.
Yeah, it's almost like we think that the story is about Red or the story is about Katarina. Maybe the story is really ultimately about Masha at the end of the day.
Could be. A couple other things that happens. He tells Dembe he's either a singular friend or a mortal enemy before they have that big conversation, which I thought was really harsh. Really harsh. And I totally get why, if that's the reason why Dembe would walk out. A friend questions your loyalty. That's a big deal.
It absolutely is.
It's a big deal.
I mean, Aaron and I can still be friends after this week, so.
Yeah. Oof, it's been close. Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? Real thin. You never know. We find out Liz is off limits. I don't think anyone was really surprised by that. Apparently, Troy thought we might be surprised by that, but I never for a second thought she was in danger.
It'd be a major twist for the show. I mean, that's one way to keep it going.
That would be a hard way to justify. They'd have to justify that one. They'd have to work toward it. You couldn't do it, I don't think, in one single episode.
And not over something that small.
Right. Yeah, that's
not really small. I mean, she did get him on death row, I guess.
Yeah. When he's talking to Dom, he's Dom says, you've killed for less. And he's like, but I've never killed for more. Oof. That's saying a lot. So this wounded him in his core. Mm-hmm. Right?
Sure did.
There's a lot of back and forth with Dom. A lot of that we're going to handle when we get to Dom. He asked Dom, this is Troy's favorite part. Why sacrifice so much? If Katarina were here, what would you tell her?
She's not here.
If you could. Huh?
She's not here. But what if she was here?
He said, if Katarina were here, what would you tell her? And then, but she's not. If she could, if you could. But she's not. If you could. If she's not. If you could. And then it's back and forth in a playground. So what did you take from that scene? Because Troy can't help but take from that scene.
Well, just in that sequence, you're getting at least an understanding that Katarina's still alive, for sure. I mean, we all believe she's alive up to this point, but we're not at Rassvet yet. There's no confirmation that Katarina ever came onto the water. So, but in this moment, you're saying, this is the first thing, like saying that there's a possibility that Katarina's still alive. And having these deep conversations tells me that whoever this imposter is at this moment is that this imposter is very close to Dom in some regard, whether it's a very long, loyal friend of Dom's from back in the KGB service days, whether it's his daughter, whether it's a friend of the daughter or a brother, uncle kind of thing.
Or somebody who pledged their life to him when they were 6. Yeah, somebody like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So you treat him like a son, potentially. There's a lot going on in this scene that just tells you that for Dom to break and say, because of love, damn it, because of love. So this person gets under Dom's skin enough that he can break Dom down. And that's what's interesting about that whole conversation. So it has to be that imposter has to be someone close to Dom, because we're still not at Rassvet yet at this point in the 2 hours.
No, we've already established, I think, over the course of the series that it has to be someone who's close to Dom in some way, And you could tell it totally came across like two guys having that kind of conversation, because when two guys are talking to each other, the last thing they want to say in front of the other one is love, because it's just like it's a thing. So to me, I think that pretty much seals the deal. It's a dude before I even get there, Rassvet.
Oh my gosh.
But interesting stuff.
We're saving the mythology for later. We're getting through the characters first.
Well, we're almost there because a lot of it is in the characters and what happens. Liz tells Red the truth, like right off the bat. Were you surprised by that? I know we kind of talked about it earlier, but I was really kind of shocked they got into it so fast.
Yeah, hit the ground running for a 2-hour episode. That was, whoo, hey, that just happened. Okay, let's get going. I'm buckled in.
Yep, that was pretty amazing. She has the conversation with Wrestler. We already talked about that. See, we're trying to get there, man. We're trying to get there. We know what everybody wants to talk about. Meets Dom. Shows up at his house. That takes us into the next episode.
And I have to say that I really love the fact that we've had Liz previously meet Dom, you know, when she was doing the questioning, the oleander stuff and all of that. Mm-hmm. And then when Wrestler shows her the picture, he's like, all I found was this old dude who doesn't seem to exist. And Liz is like, oh, snap. I know who that is. I think
that's Grandpa.
It was great. I mean, that was a great way to do it. So that Wrestler wasn't the one trying to like dig up that he's the grandfather, because he doesn't know, Wrestler didn't know at that point. So to have Liz actually do that and come back, oh, hey, Agent Key, nice to see you again. Want some tea?
We don't know. He still might not. But she does meet Dom, and she flat out wants to know what happened, and very nicely. Like, she's not trying to force his hand or strong arm him or anything. She's just happy to hang out with Grandpappy and find out what happened in the 6 months Katarina went into Cape May and Red came out the other side. And I want to point out, 6 months. That's a very limited amount of time. It's not change complete bone structure amounts of time, in my opinion. But it's a solid amount of time. You and my daughter, you're the only family I have. Wait.
It's 6 months.
Uh-huh.
It has nothing to do with the surgery. 6 months is the time from Cape May until October of 1991. That's 6 months.
When Reddington came out the other side.
When Reddington came out the other side. All of the
his face.
What do you call it? The repair and the laying low and the healing of the surgery and all of that stuff. That's after the 6 month period. We know the surgery happens in October of 91. Right?
Right. 6 months. That's what I'm saying. After Cape May, 6 months later, that's when Red comes out.
Right, but you were saying like, oh, that's a pretty short amount of time to have like complete bone structure redone. No, that all happens after the 6 month period.
No, it would have had to have happened before Reddington resurfaces.
Right, we don't know when Red resurfaces. 6
months after Cape May. That's what she said in the episode.
That's what Liz assumes happened.
That's what they said in the episode. Anyway. All right. So moving on, I guess we just ignore what the show says. So Dom says, she says, you and my daughter, you're the only family I have. He seems to agree. I don't think he thinks Katarina is still alive in his mind. It seems like, but I don't know that.
Well, we know what.
And he says repeatedly he lost his child. I don't think he thinks Katarina is alive.
He's hoping that she's alive. He's seen her alive at the post office, right? Because she gave him the key at that post office corner.
That's before she disappeared. That's before he thinks she died. Because he lost his child. He lost her, or she's in the wind or whatever.
Right. So there's a lot of language there that doesn't assume that he thinks she's dead. He just lost a child. Could be in the wind, could be transformed, could be a bunch of things.
Let me ask you a question. If you weren't so stuck on your theory, could you take things for face value?
In this show, absolutely not.
I don't understand that.
Theory or not.
There's so many things in this show that plays 100% at face value, but nobody seems to want to take it at face value. I don't understand that.
We've taken a lot of stuff at face value. I mean, we said imposter from day one.
No. I get when characters are saying something to hide something or they're misdirecting intentionally and everything else. But when you have an entire show who repeatedly say the same thing over and over, Dom has said this several times over the course of his involvement, that he lost his child, da-da-da-da-da. And then you have the other stuff, which people are still arguing about, even though they literally show it on screen. At some point, don't you stop and go, maybe I need to take it more at face value and less at looking at the farthest possible option?
If it was anybody else, like Aram or Cooper or Wrestler, I would absolutely take it at face value. When you're telling me something,
I don't think you would.
From a KGB operative whose sole purpose in life is trained to lie, no, I can't take anything he says at face value. I don't know if this is a cover story. I don't know if this is a truth that he's been wanting to tell. And really, if you say that the last time that you had Dom, Katarina, and Koslov all together, it was in Russia. He wasn't even in the United States yet at that point. So, yeah, there's a lot of weirdness in the story.
That we know of this far. That we know of this far. They haven't unpacked the whole thing, so Correct. We know of this far. Okay.
There's a lot more to this, and that's whatever you believe at the end of the day, whether it's Red Arena, whether it's something else, it doesn't matter. All we know is that there is way more to the story, and we are asking the wrong questions, as John has always said, and that makes it really interesting to see what happens for the rest of the season and into season 7.
No, but part of it does matter because you have to take what you see on the screen. What you see on the screen is canon. Now, you can take misdirection from a character just saying a conversation, but when they actually show events and they clearly lay out what happened, you have to accept them as canon. If you're trying to say what we see on screen is probably Dom's cover story, that would be them lying to the audience, which I do not believe they would do. Now, not even a little bit, not even an ounce. If they're going to show it on screen, that is canon to the mythology of the show, and I would go on to say, period. You have no evidence to debate that that's not the case. You have no single scene in the entirety of the show where they have showed things that happened that weren't fact.
Okay, so then let's talk about this is a visual medium.
Okay.
And there's things in the visualness of the episode that would tend to make you think that they're showing you visual things and visual cues for a reason. For example, the glasses, like they focus on the glasses specifically. Katarina's wearing sunglasses and a hat when she goes to meet her mother. He comes out the other side before he goes into the bank, and they focus on the fact that he's got a pair of glasses on with the hat. And if you read the comic books specifically show that he doesn't actually even pick up the fedora until 1994 after The Gambler, which is canon per the show. So there's a lot of stuff there that will tell you that there's more to that visually. Then you have the things that are on screen, like you said, like Dom, who said, my daughter, it took her half her life to be reborn, right? Now, she's been missing for 30 years, and Red happens to be 60 years old at the start of the season this year. I mean, those are cues that you have to pick up on.
I get your cues, but there's too much that makes it wholly impossible for Red to be. And personally, I'll be honest with you, this episode, I was never on board that theory. I mean, I've kind of humored it, but because I think it's funny to talk about, and it's a fun thing to play with. But at some point, there isn't enough there. There's more than enough in this episode and both episodes to put that to bed for me. To put it to where it's not even an option. You haven't, like, the whole idea of that theory is basically just pulling stuff out of the air. It's like to go for the most impossible possibility, which is what it is.
Even though up until a certain point, it was like still like 100% plausible, and then it was like 50-50. I mean, that you have to admit that's a pretty great theory to say that you get all the way to this point and it's still 50-50.
I don't think it was ever 100% plausible, ever. The whole concept of you can get surgery and now you have male pattern baldness. There's no way you can explain that one away. You can try, you can make up some science, I suppose, but then at some point you start getting away from actual what you see and more of what you want. And I think that's where we're at with this. I respect that you've held so firmly to this thing, but at some point you're at, this is more of what I want as opposed to what actually is in the show. And I watch the show very much I watch the show and see what happens and everything else. And a lot of people we're throwing Cape May at me after this episode. Like, wow, what about Cape May? Well, go rewatch Cape May. It works fine. There's no problem there. You have a guy who's hallucinating, and yeah, I guess you can read it the way that you want to read it, but you can also read it the other way. You can.
But in order the Cape May thing, I can understand how Elias could be there. The thing with the fact that Elias pulled Reddington out of the fire with her, so that means that he's in close proximity. He works for the embassy in America, so there's a good possibility that he could be at Cape May at the same time as Katarina.
And he thought she was dead. And she specifically says to him, I told you my plan.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So and even if he's not there, so even whether he's there or he's not there, she makes a statement in the show in the show, not in my head, where she implies that he would know what the plan was. So either way, there's an option for him to be able to remember that at Cape May, to reflect upon it at Cape May.
You see, here's where the Cape May thing falls apart, though, because I watched it last night as well. So she goes into the ocean, leaves the clothes on the beach, like the newspaper article said, which was part of her plan that she told Elias. And then Red runs into the water and saves her, brings her back, goes in, they do the whole thing. And then they tussle with whoever was following them, probably the Osterman Umbrella Company or the KGB, in the evening. And then she ends up going into the ocean anyway at night in Cape May. And so you're saying that she was in the ocean the entire time until the next morning, because when she comes out of the ocean in this episode, she's by herself. She's not with Elias.
Once again, it's you're reading into what you want to read into it. The whole point of that episode is him reflecting back. This is how I take it, because that's what the show basically said. He's reflecting back. He's having hallucinations. She was never there to begin with. He was just in a moment of depression, remembering a pivotal moment of the Reddington story, of Katarina's story, because the Hobson's choice was a big deal. It weighed on him. He failed them both in a way. And she specifically said, you chose Masha. That was the right way. And when she goes into the ocean and disappears, that's basically what happened after all of the events that unfolded in that episode. So none of it is like it happened. People keep saying, referencing Cape May, like this is the way that the events happen. It very much is Red hallucinating for most of the episode, and then coming to the realization of where everything was. Like, I'm lost in my own head. The whole thing is so fuzzy. It's kind of hard to use that as your crux for he's the same guy. Well, because he was playing the piano and Katarina was playing the piano, he must be Katarina. Okay, I mean that's quite a reach, but okay. Could have been that he was just hallucinating, and when he heard the piano, he was actually the one playing the piano, envisioning she was there when she wasn't, which is a much simpler, much more realistic answer.
But then why use flashbacks in this specific episode to tie back to that if it's Red's hallucination, unless she's Red?
Why? I don't understand your question, because that's like, why do something that's so far a reach? I don't understand your question. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, we're getting the story told to us about Cape May and what happened. You have Katarina's going in the bathtub and like trying to drown herself again. And then she's envisioning Cape May, and we're getting, flashbacks of Dom telling the story about how she was being chased and followed. And then you see the same exact sequences from Cape May. So they're trying to tie the nuggets from Cape May. Now, if they're just doing that for the audience to set a reference point, I can understand that. But there's specific reasons why they would then set that reference point, because you don't have to show those scenes from Cape May specifically. The audience is smart enough to get it.
I think it's just a refresher. It's just a quick refresher. Here's quickly what happened. And the clips that they show at the beginning of how do you say it? Rassvet? Rassvet. How they show those clips, those are actually from Cape May. Like her stabbing the guy and throwing the guy over the thing, and that's from Cape May. And then you have the moment where Red is in Cape May, where he's confronting Katarina about why would you do this? Why would you hurt yourself? And, it's obvious that he, based on what we see later, absolutely loves this woman. And he did whatever he could to save her from killing herself. It all makes sense if you take your own without a problem. Like, it makes sense without a problem. It is much more difficult to make it work based on what you want to stick to with the Katarina thing or the Red Arena thing. It makes it nearly impossible. In fact, I would say impossible to make that work. But this makes logistical sense. It makes completely emotional. And people are saying, well, we haven't even seen this character before. It makes sense why we wouldn't have seen this character before. There's no reason why we should have up until this point.
Yeah, I
agree. Had no reason to have met that character.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think if you're in a matter of grief strickenness that he was after Liz died, I mean, if you could say, well, I'm going to treat her as if she was my own, sure. But after 30 years,
that's canon. What do you mean, sure? That's not sure. He said it.
I'm just saying. I'm just
100% a fact of the show. Unlike Red Arena, it's not something that's just like pulled out of the air. This is actually something that is said on the show. He says, like she was my own. That makes total sense. To him, she is like his own. Makes sense.
But not to the point where you'd be so grief-stricken that you're going to like kiss her on her eye and
100% to that point. 100% to that point. Like she was my own. The show said it. It's not in our heads. It's not a theory. It's in the show. And that makes total sense. It's like, because people are so stuck on whatever the theory is, they're not watching. Sometimes I feel like it's in the show. You have to accept what the show says, and it showed it. Therefore, it did happen. It was said, and it does make sense.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Move on.
Just saying, you can't hear a line of dialogue that explains it and then act like it doesn't explain it.
It explains it, but it's also coming from Dom's perspective. It's just like everybody was like, it's just like
I can't do that. I can't do that. That makes no sense. You're trying to say that what they show you isn't actually a fact.
I'm saying that it came from Dom's perspective, and we have a whole scene at the end where Red's like, what the hell did you actually tell her word for word? Tell me what you told her. Like they're literally telling you on the screen in the same moment that they're telling you, I'll treat her like my own. They're also telling you that the story that you made up probably isn't even the same story that you're supposed to tell because you really don't know the whole truth, Dom.
100% did not take that from that. To me, that says
a lot of people
there's
did.
more to the story, and he wants to know exactly which parts of it did he tell. I know who I am. I know the crux, the broad strokes. I need to know exactly word for word, like what you said, to try to find, because there's more to the story. Not that the story isn't true, but there's more to it.
Okay.
There's parts he probably left out for her own safety or whatever. But if they showed you that on screen, it has to be canon. It has to be. And it has to be. Otherwise, they lie to the audience, and I don't want to watch a show that lies to the audience. And there's not one example in the show's history that you can give me where they showed a scene that was a lie.
It's true. It is true.
See? I'm just saying. Now, can it go a different direction? Can it go somewhere else after what we have already seen? Yes. You could even make the argument because they show the body, but they don't show her face, even though it's under surgery. It makes sense why they wouldn't show somebody's face. You can make an argument that maybe that's a woman's body. I guess you can make that argument.
The arms did look very feminine on the table.
It had a little bit of hips, but also they have similar body types if you watch them throughout the episode. And I did. They have similar frames. They're both very thin, skinny people. So, I mean, it's really hard to tell from how that was shot. That's about the only...
Gabriel Mann is taller than her, just like Red's taller than her and Kate May.
Well, there's no tape measure on that table, so it's kind of hard to tell how tall that character is.
My favorite scene, though, was when he tried to lean in for the kiss the first time, and then she denied him in the hotel room.
Well, see, but to me, and I guess we're already leaping. Let's skim through real quick. Dom, we get a 2 for this week. Apparently, he had an accident a few months back. That was interesting. My child betrayed everything I believe in. We found out more about that later. I don't turn my back on her. I went into hiding for her. Masha doesn't even know him. His granddaughter doesn't even know him. You take what you want, a beer, a life. And then he says, you forgave Katarina, but not me. And he said, I forgave my child, which to me says Katarina is somebody else. Now, you can also make the argument, I'm sure what you're going to, that, well, his child is dead because he's this new person.
Right.
That's your case? Okay.
Yeah. You were the architect of this whole thing.
Which he was based on what we saw.
The thing that's still tripping me up though is this whole the timeline of when did he get the key to the post office, the whole I saw you in the rearview mirror. The rearview mirror thing is the thing that throws me because when Elias and Katarina were together in Russia with Dom, if that's the last time that he sees his daughter in the rearview mirror, that's in Russia in a completely different car. You don't ship your car from Russia over to the United States at that point in time when you're trying to run away from the KGB. So that means the car that he saw in the rearview mirror is the car in the United States, which means the last time he saw his daughter was at the post office getting the key, in my opinion. And
probably
in order for that to happen, that means Elias had to...
Ilya. It's not Elias.
Sorry,
it's Ilya.
Yeah, Ilya. Koslav, yeah. Ilya said, hey, last time you saw your daughter was in this rearview mirror. So is he referencing Russia in that moment? Because that's the last time Ilya would have seen Dom. In that moment.
We don't
with Katarina.
maybe she's seen him once he got settled. We don't know. There's, like I said, there's a lot more to the story that we don't know yet.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like they told us everything last night. They gave us something. They gave us some tangible, like to get you down the path because they need to start working toward their end game or whatever. I would imagine, at least at this point, I would think it would be approaching their end game, or at least building up to, because they don't drop big reveals much. So when they do, it's got to be setting the place for how the season ends and then next year and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Red wants to tell him he gave up a lot. Sometimes he forgets how hard he had it. Dom eventually says he gave up his life for love. We already talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
When Liz comes over and they start talking, he really does enjoy spending time with his granddaughter. So that was very sweet. He made a promise to lie to his granddaughter because of love. And he tells her that he hopes she knows that your mother loved you. He was going to turn her in, but not. Here's the other part. He ordered her to turn Reddington, but not to have his child. So he seemed very frustrated about that part.
And this was the weird part. Like, why is your dad your handler? That's the part I didn't quite understand. That seems a little conflict of interest. But he
a little bit. Yeah, it was a little weird too.
Yeah, he gave the order to Katarina that Katarina was supposed to turn Reddington to become a KGB person. And instead they fell in love, they had a kid, and it kind of messed the whole thing up. And because of that, now there's like this mess.
Yep. Ilya. Say that 3 times real fast. Koslov. You know what we're going to do? We're going to do this a little different. I'm just going to real quick talk about him, and then we're going to talk about Katarina, and then we'll just kind of unfurl everything that happened. He receives his daily crossword from Katarina. We find out through this that they've been friends since childhood. That's
sure
said on the show.
Yep.
They pledged their lives together when they were 6, said on the show. He looks a lot like Spader, wears a coat like Spader, walks like Spader, pops the collar like Spader. I wonder what the connection could be.
There's actually it's funny, there's an article, I think it was like from 2013 or so, about like celebrity lookalikes.
Mm-hmm.
In that celebrity lookalike, they were like, if someone was to make like a biopic history of the James Spader saga, like they should cast this guy. And you know who it was?
Gabriel Mann.
Was
it really?
It was. I'll put a link up to that article in the show notes. I think it's funny.
That's small world, man.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's
thanks
why.
to Matthew Gabriel for sending that over this morning. That was pretty funny. I had a laugh.
Maybe that's how they came across.
Maybe.
I mean, you can't deny the guy does look a little like him.
He does.
Young Spader.
And I love Gabriel Mann. He's awesome. Great actor.
And he's even has in the show, in the episode, the hair like Spader would have had at that time.
True. Very true.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
But remember, real life, it does not mean the characters.
No, it doesn't. But when they show it to you on screen, brother, I don't know what to tell you. All right, Katarina Rostova. We got her back. I missed her.
I'm glad they confirmed that she is alive, though. That was great.
What do you mean?
Well, because we speculated that she was alive for a long time. This gives you confirmation that she is 100% alive
after K-Bay
in the universe.
Yes. Well, we don't know.
We don't know if she's alive today, right? Because Virginia was alive and then she was dead.
Right. So Hobson's choice. Remember, he had to choose between. See, here's what my thinking is, right? Based on what we saw on the show again. That leads me to a theory that it's what happened after those events. After he becomes Reddington, something else happened to Katarina where he thinks he killed her or he thinks he did something to her. And that's why she hasn't been around for all these years. So it's like, what happened to her after that part?
Which would go back to Dembe's line in the end of season 4. Like,
exactly.
I don't know if Liz will ever forgive you for what you did to Katarina.
Exactly. Look at that. We're referencing stuff that happened. Weird. Okay. Well, we see her coming out of the sea. It was her baptism, as her dad says, or a dawn, maybe.
Yep. Or a dawn. Yep.
Dawn, new beginning. She ends up at a church shelter. She had hypothermia, which is funny. In these 2 hours, hypothermia is mentioned in both episodes. Did you notice that?
That was cute.
Mm-hmm. Nice little tie. They give a recap.
I don't think being frozen is the same thing as hypothermia, though.
Well, no, they mentioned that one of the characters died of hypothermia.
True. That's true.
The first episode. So it's a tie together. I didn't know if they intentionally tied them together, but they tied together.
I was still focused on the frozen popsicle standing up that its leg fell off.
That was cool. I like that. They give a recap of her killing a bunch of people in Cape May. they say that she's still being hunted by Anton Velov, who uses the Russian woman that Katarina tried to save to get a tip. So he's still on the hunt. And that's how they find out what hotel they're at and everything else.
Now, if you want a cool spinoff, like I'm all about like the Velov episode, like Velov just tracking her down. Like it's like cold cases. That'd be kind of fun to watch Velov over the years and see how this all played out.
That's funny. We did what we could, right? This is a reference to the Reddington thing. We did what we could, right? They pulled him out of the fire, which is explaining the burns on both of them. Both of them would have possibly burns because they pulled him out of the fire. This explains that. It explains it on Ilya.
That's an assumption because we don't see that Ilya even has burns.
100%. I agree with that.
And if he has burns as bad as Reddington has in the end of season 1, he's not wearing a shirt.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
We don't know that.
We don't know that because by the same token, then also Katarina wouldn't be wearing a shirt.
But she wasn't as badly burned.
No, I'm saying if you're saying Reddington is Katarina, she'd have the same burns. So possibly.
Or I'm saying Reddington's burns at the end of season 1 is a MacGuffin because we know that Fagin set a fire, and in that fire, Reddington was involved because he was trying to apologize for the fire that he set. And therefore, those burns could be from that fire way long after all of this stuff happened.
There's a whole lot of could be's, but I'm just saying Ilya was there. He was there. It's confirmed in the show.
Yes, he was at the whatever event happened when Masha shot Reddington.
Now, more rational theory is maybe he did have a family, but he always loved Katarina. That's a reasonable theory. Doesn't involve plastic surgery.
It does. It could explain the Tacoma house then, too.
Exactly. Now you're understanding where I'm coming from. Using stuff we actually see to come to a theory. It's weird. All right. No, I sound like a dick. All right. So
you don't sound like one. We've known that since season 1. That was a truth that was given a long time ago.
Yeah, well, we're unpacking it still. So what did you think? How did you feel about learning the Reddington thing? Because I'm kind of confused in respect to how Katarina, you can tell she obviously loves Reddington. I don't think she loves Ilya. It really, really seems, and everybody has probably had this relationship where you secretly love someone that you've always wanted to be with, but they never return that love, but you end up doing everything in the world for them. I know I've done that. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. Everybody's been there, I think. Where did you take that from? Because she seemed really concerned that Reddington didn't make it, and which she also confirmed Reddington is dead. We can say that.
Yes.
The real Raymond Reddington.
Yeah, we drug him out. He died. I held him in my arms. Yeah, all of that confirms and goes along with what the showrunner said on this very podcast. He confirmed it, that Reddington is DEAD dead. Elizabeth Keene's father is dead.
Confirmed. like five times now.
That is probably the most clear thing in the show at this point.
Right. Okay, I'm going to run through the events real quick that lead us to the big reveal, and then we'll fight. Okay?
Okay.
Because there's a lot of okay.
And we should say, Aaron and I deeply love each other. We're friends.
Yeah.
This is just for the show, for entertainment value, people.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to punch you sometimes. All right, so fake passport. That happens. She gets the name Anna Croft, so jot that down. That might come back later. Anna Croft. We meet her mom, so we finally know where mom was. She gives her money, puts her into hiding, and then heads to Russia to get her papa, who we thought actually might betray her, but he doesn't. And then this is a fun little fact of mine. A bunch of Russians are having a little standoff in the middle of this hotel room. Everybody's Russian. Everybody speaks English. I laughed out loud.
That was the one thing I wrote down. I was like, if we could have done anything different in this episode, if I had to have one nitpick, it's like we could have just yelled in Russian, subtitled the whole thing. Would have been a little bit more of a benefit.
Yeah, it was kind of because, I mean, this episode is great, by the way. I think this episode is great. Actually, both of them are great. Just
they're amazing.
Different ways. Yeah. But that one scene, I laughed out loud. I'm like, why is everybody that's there a Russian and they're yelling at I mean, I get why TV wise, but in reality sense, I'm like, that's a bigger stretch than Red Arena. Okay. So Dom gets out, but she's worried about them destroying Red. We find that out, and they will destroy them. They won't stop until they do. So they basically, the plan I'm getting, Katarina calls Sam, talks to Masha. Liz remembers, by the way, bye mama. You caught that?
Yes, I did.
So a little bit of her memory. She remembered that. Then once again, she contemplates suicide. She's very, very depressed.
She likes to kill herself a lot.
Well, I mean...
Drown herself in the bathtub, jump off a hotel building, throw herself in an ocean.
Troy's 100% joking, but just to be fair, people that contemplate suicide, they do make more than one attempt typically. So that's not
true.
a surprise.
That's true.
Not a surprise. But then Carlyle comes up with a plan. Now I just want to point out, they show that Carlyle comes up with a plan. I would argue, sounds like he architected this charade. Anyway, so here is the charade as it's come to known. The world doesn't know what happened to Raymond Reddington, so we give them the answer. Raymond is the only one who can access the accounts, the hidden money, the bribes, and everything else they were going to use to frame old, dead Raymond Reddington, right?
Right.
$40 million. All they need to stay ahead of the KGB, the Cabal, US, whatever. All they ever need. And they know they can't use Red because Red died in her arms. They say that. Red died in her arms.
Yes.
Again. Once again, confirming the guy is dead. The bones are in a garbage can somewhere. He dead.
They were in that fire that you ran by in the forest.
Right. So he's saying he'll become Reddington, stepping into the shoes of a man forever deemed a traitor, according to Dom. And then we need personal details. This is what Carlyle says in the episode. We need personal details, part of who he was, and who better to provide those details than a woman who spied on him, whose job it was to know everything about him. And then he goes on to say, basically part of it will be fact, part of it will be anecdotes, and they'll be able to just piece it together and make their own mysterious avenger of ways. It's a bold plan. And then she asks him, why would you do that? To which he says to her, to protect you. She says to him, they'll hunt you. You'll never be able to stop running. He says to her, why do I have to keep reminding you? We pledged our lives together. Then he finally gets that kiss he's been wanting forever. Whew. There's more. Hang on. Promise me one thing. She says to him, if they get to me, if they take me, take care of Masha.
As if she was my own.
Weird. And then, wait. You said it. Hang on. What did he say? What did he say?
As if she was my own.
Like she was my own. Like she was my own. So if I'm Katarina. If they get to me, if they take me, take care of Masha. Like she was my own. Huh. Weird. It works 100% with the show. That's just so weird. All right. So then Raymond Reddington is shown. Agreed. They don't show Katarina. Why would they? She's in hiding. But anyway, he's shown, does the deed, goes into the bank, gets the money, comes out of the bank, talks to someone, we don't know who, and says, and yes, it worked. Okay, so we got to finish it out and then we'll get to our debate. Okay, so Liz flies halfway around the world because she says, I know the truth, which we know she doesn't know the whole truth. There's no way because, Red has that look like, you don't know everything. Who told you about this? Dom. And she says she has so many questions and he's like, you and me both, which of course Troy's like, yeah, because he wears your dress. And then he shows up at Dom's house. He says, what were you thinking? You were the architect of this charade. Or charade, but I like charade better. Dom says, you cost me my daughter, and up until now, my granddaughter and great-granddaughter. Red says, what did you tell her? I know the broad strokes. I know who I am. I am who I am, Papa the Sailor Man. I know who I am. I need to know what you put out there into the ether. And then Dom, basically is just trying to offset it. And Red says, I think you made things worse from the start. What did you tell her? Word for word. That's it. That's all of it.
I also like when he's talking to Liz in the restaurant, he said, I am who I am, which is actually a very specific quote from the burning bush in the Bible to Moses. So Red's almost declaring himself a god in that moment as well, if you want to look at it from a literary sense.
Well, he said Popeye the Sailor Man.
Well, yeah.
Once again, reaching. He literally quoted and then referenced this quote. All right, Troy, I talked for a lot. What did you take from all that? Have at it.
Well, you could also say that I am who I am, Popeye the Sailor Man. Popeye the Sailor Man was a naval person, so that's where people are probably hanging on to well, maybe this is Red, and he's still alive. He's dead. He's so dead.
Okay, that was once again that was a reach, but I just thought
that's where people. That's how people reach, though. I mean, that's a
reach.
reach.
I'll give you that. Hello, you can do Popeye all day. All right, so what'd you take from it? Come on, man. I got 15 minutes and I'm out.
Look, I'm saying that on screen everything does point to that this is true, right? I'll give you that. The thing is that there's way more to this than just what we saw on the screen today, and the biggest thing in this whole thing that still has me perplexed is you got this story from Dom, and Dom is a KGB agent, well trained. This could be something that was actually concocted back in the day as well, if Liz ever finds out, here's what we tell Liz. I mean, all of that is a plausibility. So it's not that I can't take this. So I'll say it this way. At this point on screen, what's in the show, I've went back, watched a couple episodes. I will say, yes, I can see how Carlysle works in a lot of different situations. Give you that. At the same time, there's still like this sliver of you can't 100% put a nail in the coffin, because the only way to put the nail in the coffin is to see Katarina on screen alive after the surgery with Reddington side by side. That is the only way you can say that it is definitively dead.
The Red Arena theory that Red is Katarina.
I would say up until the point of the master plan, jumping off the balcony moment, like you're still 50-50 at that point, maybe 80-20, and then it goes and flips the other way to 20-80 the other way after the plan is hatched. Because there still could be, you still go back to some of it's more of the visualizations in the show. For example, we see him rob a bank in the beginning of the season, and here he has to basically rob a bank. And after 60 years, I want to see if I still had it. You know, there's all of that kind of stuff, which I think is really interesting. You have, the whole rearview mirror thing is conflicting and contradicting in a way. And I feel
only in the way that you take it. Only in the way that you take it. It's not really that big a deal to me, and I'm paying attention to the show too. I just
you had your piece.
Your theory.
Shush,
no.
Shush.
Hey, I haven't actually gone in. I just said what happened. But
right.
But
you believe what happened, so therefore
I went through facts.
You believe what happened at face value, so you had your piece. The biggest thing about this whole episode for me is the fact that it's Rassvet, dawn, new birth, new life, a new thing, and it's in reference to Katarina. So if Katarina became a completely different person in her rebirth, in her dawning of a new era, then why have her in hiding for 30 years? She's a strong woman. She can do this stuff on her own. She doesn't need help. She doesn't need anybody caring for her. She doesn't need to do any of that stuff. So if I'm the lover who's pined after her whole life, it is plausible to say that they bumped uglies that evening, woke up the next morning, ready to go do the plan, and she ditched him and just did it herself. Because she's a spy. She's that strong and that capable. I mean, it is very possible that could have played out that way as well. But we'll have to wait and see, because until Katarina shows up on screen with Reddington in the present, or at least sometime after 1991 post-surgery, the theory can't be put in the coffin. But I'm going to say I will play along at face value, because there is a lot on the screen that would say that Ilya is indeed Reddington.
Okay, so you went on your thing. I literally just read the facts. So I mean, I didn't have an opinion. I just read what actually happened. Those are facts. So there's it's already in the coffin. It's never actually come out of the ground. It's a theory. So there's no truth to any of it. There's no proof of any of it. There's just I want to link this to this, and it kind of means this. Okay, but that's not really proof of anything. Here they actually showed you aspects. Now, I will give you that we don't see his face when he gets the surgery. But to me, the secrets are more what happens after he makes that role assumption? What happens after he becomes Raymond Reddington? Who is this guy? What really happened to him? What was his life outside of there are so many more questions that can still extend another season or two or whatever that stem even with this knowledge. So there's nothing wrong with the revelation here. And we've had this problem in the past where we're too passionate about whatever our theory is. We won't let it go, even when we ignore what we see on screen. And then it turns out to be exactly what we thought it was going to be. Like I said,
we've been pretty spot on for most of the series along the way.
Yeah. They've never had a scene where they showed you something that happened that wasn't true. So he is the architect of the charade. They showed that to us. When Dom references it, he says, "You are the architect of the charade." They show that in the show, both those things. He said, Red says, "I know who I am. I know the broad strokes," or whatever. You can take so much of this to mean other stuff if you want to. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to. Sometimes we need to take what we see at face value. And here I feel like they're giving you a substantial portion of what happened to kind of get you geared up for more questions to come. I mean, it left me with way more questions than I walked in with. Because, I didn't know who Raymond Reddington was. Was it an uncle? Was it everything else? But I knew in my mind, because it's not Red Arena, it's probably going to be a character I don't know yet. Most likely.
And that is the one crux. Like, I'll give this to you. The whole...
Oh, well, thanks, because I'm just going by facts.
Well, he says, like, you looking across the table at the imposter, you were the architect of this charade. His assumption, because we, the audience, don't know at this point, because the last time the audience knows that Dom saw Katarina was in Russia, this imposter could come to Dom sometime after the surgery and tell Dom whatever the imposter needs Dom to believe in order to protect Katarina. And because of that, Dom is assuming that this is Ilya because of what the imposter has told him. Unless Katarina specifically saw Dom after the surgery alive.
Which we don't know.
So there's still, that's what I'm saying. There's still this hole you have to take. When you say take it at face value, you have to remember who disseminated the information. And right now, the imposter told Dom the information. That means the imposter could tell Dom anything the imposter wants Dom to know.
There's no hole. They showed it on screen that he came up with this.
From Dom's perspective.
No. Once again, that's what people keep saying. But the show has never, ever shown a scene because it would be lying to the audience. If you put it on screen, it's canon. I don't care who's telling the story. It's canon. It becomes a fact. And Dom wouldn't be there for a lot of this. So that's going to be people's excuse to excuse all of it. Well, that would mean that they made a whole episode intending to lie to the audience. And that's ridiculous.
It didn't lie to the audience, though. Like, here's a great example. So let's play this. Let's play it this way. So Ilya is 100% the architect.
Yes,
completely agree with that. Dom believes that the imposter is Ilya. Can totally 100% buy that. The problem that I have is that when they leave the bank or they leave the surgery or whatever it was when he comes out and goes into the bank and he calls like it worked. There's still Fitch. Alan Fitch is the crux of the whole thing. And if Alan Fitch was her handler as the cabal and they had all this money that they were going to frame Reddington with, which was the cabal's money, then it would make sense that if Katarina becomes Reddington, that Katarina would have been calling Fitch in that moment to say, hey, here's how we can keep the cabal a secret, because as long as I'm alive, Reddington, then therefore the cabal, the fulcrum will never come out. And then when Reddington shows up and Fitch is all pissed off and in the Ansel Garrick sequence and they like know each other, Ilya wouldn't have known Fitch. That doesn't make any sense.
You keep saying that. We don't know that. There's so much of his backstory we don't know. We don't know what happened. Because we know Katarina knows him. Yes, we know that. And we know that Fitch is sick of her before Reddington dies. But Ilya is there after Reddington dies, which means he could easily come back into the picture as Reddington or whatever. Katarina could introduce him. Whatever it is, he could know the secret. Fitch could have known the whole time, and it seemed like Fitch did. So yes, you could play it your way, or you can play it the more sensible way that he just knows that Ilya assumed that.
I just want that on record. Like Aaron said, you could play it that way. So you're saying it is a plausibility.
But that's more of a reach. No, I don't think it's plausible. It's more of a reach. It's more of, I want this to be true. I need this to be true, but you can't handle the truth.
I said that I'm okay if it goes away. I'm totally fine with it. I'm just saying that there's enough loophole in it that it still works within a show, and it still gives the show credibility, and it would still play out, and it could still be a fantastic reveal. I'm just saying there's loopholes. There are loopholes. It's not 100% in the ground in a coffin.
There's not a loophole for me that he's the architect of the charade.
There's not for me either.
There's no loophole there. Anything we saw on screen is fact. I am not taking anything that I saw on screen as anything but fact, because there's no reason. The show has never given me a reason to do that. And I'll be honest, if the show lied to me, I would stop watching it, no matter what the show was. Just don't give me canon, or don't give me an explanation and then show it to me. You know, I get when you hint at something, but then it's not what I thought it was going to be. That's different. That's misdirection. You show me something and then you go do the opposite thing. That's lying to the audience. And they're not going to do that. They wouldn't show you anything they didn't want you to actually know.
But they didn't show you Ilya laying down on the table and show you his face.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. I have no reason to doubt that it wasn't him though, because it's, once again, much more plausible than what you're suggesting. It's far more plausible, like 350,000% more plausible and easier to justify than what you're saying.
Because then you're going to have to reach and say, well, in order for 30 years of memories to be retained that long, even if you're throwing in some anecdotes here and there, which came from Liz, by the way, that memory implanting, we've had that in the show. Could he implant these memories into his brain?
He said very clearly what the plan was. Take what you know, throw in some anecdotes. So some of this is true, some of this is not.
Anecdotes. He didn't say that. Liz said, and he'd have to fill in the gaps.
Okay, I'm sorry. Liz said it, whatever. But they said it in the show, and it makes total sense. And he said, who better to help me build this guy than the person who spied on him, the person who loved him.
Right, and who better to do that?
They have a very clear conversation about they'll be hunting you, yada, 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 you, and he said, I would do it to protect you. All of that makes sense. It's plausible, and it makes far more sense than Red Arena. It's just so much more reasonable. Why wouldn't you be willing to accept that as a good possibility?
I said I accept what I saw on the screen, and I'm saying that Red Arena is probably closer to dead than alive, but there's still hope. That's all I'm saying. There's still hope.
All right.
I think the one thing, though, to kind of wrap this up, I think the best thing about this episode at the end of the day is that we both of us have said, like, just give me the answer. If you give me the answer, it will open up that many more questions, and you still have a whole runway of stuff to talk about, because now, whether it's Red Arena, whether it's Ilya, whether it's whatever, it could be a completely different person. It could be a Dread Pirate Robert situation, and Ilya switched to have somebody else take over because Ilya was tired of it all. But what happens now is, what is it that because we know Katarina's alive. So now we have to find out, is Katarina still alive today? And what happened between 91 and the present in the last 30 years with Katarina Rostova. That is an interesting story, and I can't wait to see that unfold.
My personal opinion, based on what we've seen in the show, is that Katarina he thought she was dead until recently. He being Red, my opinion.
Okay.
Red thought she was dead because I do believe, he suffers with a lot of guilt that he made a choice to protect her. And then when she died and everything else, he feels like she's dead in his world. She's dead. So I think for the longest time, he has felt like she was dead.
The Hobson's choice is what you're referring to.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay. Or he could have just been referring to Tom and Liz and Masha or Agnes.
Could have been.
Could have been.
Could have been. Well, I do think that's what the Hobson's choice was, but I also wonder, because based on what the conversation was when he's hallucinating about, like, he chose Masha, you did the right thing. That says that to me.
Yeah, save one or lose them both. I chose the child.
Yeah, I'm going off what I saw.
Want to take a quick second to say thank you to all of those that are supporting us on Patreon at Patreon, patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. We got lots of great stuff up there for you to listen to, extra bonus content. It definitely helps out the show and us if you can throw a few bucks in the fedora. Want to say big thanks to Doug, Marilyn, Lacey, Leone, Brandon, Jim, Lorelei, Carol, Stacy, Florian. All those guys are doing amazing things and all get Blacklist Exposed t-shirts for their support. Also, shout out to Lisa, Kevin, Paulette, Priscilla, Isabel, Richard, Nell, James, Judy, Rachel, Tony, and Sharon for being amazing special agents supporting us at the $5 level. Again, guys, $5 from just 400 of you, and we can do an awesome watch party in New York, maybe even for the season 7 premiere, if we can make that happen by then. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. Fill the fedora, get some awesome rewards for yourself, and we'll be back with Red's Rhetoric right after this.
Are you sick of the endless, poorly realized remakes as we are? Then take a listen to Remake This Movie Right, where we take a classic movie, figure out what works and what doesn't, throw a dash of humor at it, and then we craft our own remake. So by the end of every episode, we will remake this movie right. Recently featured as a podcast to listen to by the AV Club, you can find us at RemakeThisMovieRight.com or your podcast app of choice. Every movie you love will get a remake someday, and only you can make it better.
Hey, Dembe loyals, this is Hisham Tawfiq. You are listening to Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
Welcome to Red's Rhetoric, that part of the show where we feature 2 great scenes from Red himself. Then you get to vote over on our website at theblacklistexposed.com. In our poll for this episode, just look for the Rassvet episode. First this week, Red seeks advice from Dom.
You gave up a lot. That was hard. Sometimes I forget how hard.
It looks like you came all this way for nothing.
Why'd you do it? Why sacrifice so much that you end up like this?
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
If Katarina were standing here instead of me, if it were she asking you why you did what you did after she'd betrayed you, what would you tell her?
It doesn't matter because she's not here and she's not asking.
But if you could tell her.
I can't.
But if you could. Love. Love. Love.
Our second clip comes from Red when Red and Dembe exchange words.
I went away to think about you and me, and all I could think was that I missed you. Us. You know, Elizabeth Keene has lied and deceived me more times than I can count, and I've forgiven her every time. But I realize you don't need my forgiveness. Ever. Because when it comes to this, you can do no wrong.
I appreciate that, Raymond. But I can't forgive you.
I guess I don't understand.
No. I suppose you don't.
Which was your favorite this week? If you would do anything, including give up your daughter, vote #RedLove. Or if some bridges are too far to cross, vote #RedForgive.
All right, we're moving to Special Agent Intel. We're going to whip through this because we've already talked about this enough. Cheryl Donnelly, once again, 2 hours of twisted truth, and JB is giggling himself to sleep. I believe that's probably accurate.
He's laughing his butt off listening to this right now. Barbara E. Turner. Well, at least we know there was 2 people. So bye-bye, Redarina. Thank goodness.
I'm with you, Barbara. Glenn Fredrickson. I don't know about R.I.P. Redarina. The back scars are still unexplained. And where the hell is Katarina? I think maybe that guy died after he became Red and Katarina took over the role to keep near her daughter, and they have the fulcrum as protection against the Cabal, and her becoming Red makes her dead as protection against the KGB. That's plausible too.
Yeah, like I said, rabbits could be switching around.
I wouldn't say plausible, but it's there.
All right, Jennifer Karam said, okay, guys, answer me this. Why did Raymond care so much about Liz not finding out who he really is? If it was just some boy that Katarina was close to, why would that have to be a secret? And why would you only speak with Elizabeth Keene when you turn herself in?
More questions.
Mm-hmm.
But it works. It's still a big secret. He promised. He made a promise. All right. Nicole, this is exactly what I always thought. Fake Red had a close relationship with Katarina. He lost his own family, wife and daughter in a horrible way. He became Reddington and vowed to protect Liz. It's that simple. I didn't know he was in love with Katarina. That was the missing link. I'm hoping we should find out more about this Red's family and maybe they're still alive. Redarina is dead. The question is, will people keep it going like Daddygate even though it's totally over? My guess is yes, based on what you've heard here.
Deborah said Red's reaction is the giveaway that he's not Ilya. He had the cheek twitch with Liz when he found out, and he didn't confirm that he was Ilya in that conversation, much like season 4 when he didn't confirm he was her dad. I added that. Dom lied again to protect his child, just like back in Moscow. Red wouldn't have to know everything Dom said word for word if it was the truth. The truth doesn't change. I still think Red is Katarina.
But unlike season 4, it was characters saying that he was her father, not showing. This time, they showed things. If you see it on screen, it's canon. Tatiana Reddington. Ilya is a fabrication. Remember, this story was told in images from Dom's point of view. We are just seeing his story. Nope, not buying that. Sorry. There has been absolutely no hint of someone like Ilya in any previous episode. Why would there be? Many are assuming Ilya is current day Red. I don't think there ever was an Ilya. In the scene between Red and Liz, she says, I have a million questions. Red responds, you and me both. When Red goes to speak with Dom, he says, I want to hear every single detail word for word. Why would he say that if the story was true? I think I made that argument. It's very, very possible that it's just a matter of there's a lot more to it and her life might be in danger for other reasons we don't know yet.
Right, because he told Dom the story that he wanted to tell Dom because he was protecting whatever. Dee Elliott said, 2 amazing episodes. Great performances from James and Megan. Thought it was great how Dom got Red to realize that it was love that helped him get over Katarina's betrayal, and Red used love and friendship to get past Dembe's. I'm sad that Dembe walked out on Red, and I hope he returns soon. As for Rassvet, all I can say is, wow! If we can believe what we've been shown, it's safe to say Katarina and Red are 2 different people. But as usual, not all is as it seems with the Blacklist. Something is up with that story and the way Red was asking Dom what he said word for word. We definitely got some answers, but sadly got more questions. Can hardly wait for the last couple of episodes. Great stuff.
George Nauman? Many, many questions. Good case was made the night that Ilya became Raymond Reddington, and maybe he did, but in my opinion, I'm not ready to say Redarina is dead. That seems to be a thing where people don't want to let that go. We have no idea what happened to Katarina. Ilya was not with Katarina and Cape May, yet Red knows exactly what happened there. It almost seems doubtful Kirk would have spared Red's life if Red said, I am Ilya Koslov. I think there's much more for the story to tell. Yeah, I 100%, that works for me. I'm not Raymond Reddington. That would be enough. I'm not the guy you think I am. It's all a facade. I get that. I would let him go too. He's not the guy I wanted to kill.
No, I think if you go back to Alexander Kirk, the 3 things we said was, I'm Katarina, Katarina is alive, or I know where Masha is, or I know where your real daughter is, the one that Constantine had. So I think it's number 2, Katarina's alive.
Yeah, I do think that too. We did say that. Yeah, that's probably what it is. I'm just saying that would work too.
No, it wouldn't. I'm not Reddington. Yeah, bullshit. Still stab you and squirt you with a needle.
All right.
If I was that angry, that's exactly what I would do. Cindy Mack said, if Kozlov was childhood friends, besties with KR, Katarina Rostova, he probably met both Kirk and Kaplan as Koslov. Explains why Red told Kaplan he is not as unknown to her as she thinks. Could have told Kirk he is Koslov and was protecting Katarina and Masha. Also would explain Kaplan putting the baby in his arms. I emphasized his for Aaron. I'm sure Koslov visited Katarina Rostova when he could. They were super tight.
Super tight. Yeah, there's a lot of truth there, man. A lot of truth. Monica Stolfa. Phew. He's not Red Arena. I hope Troy's buying drinks. Nope, he's not. Now taking things at face value, we have Russian still hunting Dom, a possible living Katarina, Kozlov liking his Red identity so much he might be close to have lived as Reddington longer than he has as himself. And I agree with that. That was my big thing, is like, why would you stay as that guy? For a lot of reasons, to protect Masha, but also if you like the power of it, which he seems to. I suddenly see why Reddington's secret must stay a secret. Haha. Thanks, Monica. I'm with you. You and I. I'm about to go. Katarina's, Dom's, and maybe even Liz's and Agnes's life hang in the balance. I wonder if Liz is going to tell Wrestler and the team. I wouldn't imagine. Maybe Wrestler. And kudos to Wrestler for coming clean with Liz. She should have turned to him in the first place instead of nearly getting her sister killed. Then she wouldn't have needed to lock Red Kozlov. Doesn't really roll off the tongue as much as Red Arena. Up in the first place. Frickin' Keystone Caps. Now on to stopping Anna Mcmahon.
Yeah. Grace Normand. Okay, deep breath. The writers were actually telling the truth when they said this was going to be a big episode. I'm honestly shocked we got as much information as we did. I believe Dom told the truth, and everything he said makes sense and is not surprising to me. I was really expecting something like this to be the final ever episode, or maybe a few eps before the final. Okay, another deep breath. There's so much to think about. I'm kind of glad to get rid of Red Arena. I thought it was a good possibility for a while, but I think deep down I lied to myself. Side note, I think now a huge part of the show is going to be the mystery of what actually happened to Katarina.
Absolutely agree. And Ellen Purdy, considering that this episode is told from Dom's perspective and that he is probably only repeating what he was told by Katarina about a lot of what took place, I'm not feeling like we can rule out any theory yet. I love the episode and you very much look forward to watching them again tomorrow. I disagree. If we see it on screen, it's canon.
All right.
Let's conclude this.
Good stuff.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. But I do have to run. So this will conclude this episode. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at The Blacklist GSM, where we live tweet during the East Coast feed when possible, and use the show's hashtag The Blacklist.
Don't forget to follow us on Tumblr, Instagram, and join the Facebook group. Lots of conversation going on over there. Just search for The Blacklist Exposed. Talk about the show, the podcast, or the last thing you saw in your rearview mirror.
All right. Big thanks for listening. Don't forget to answer our profiling question. What happened to Katarina after Reddington?
All right. Lots of fun. 3 episodes to go. And remember, we're moving up an hour. It's going to be at 8, not 9, 8 Eastern and Pacific, 7 Central on NBC, going in for the last 3 episodes.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs. That's at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com or on Twitter at 5popcorn. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of The Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.